By now, you've probably heard the news. Democrats, yes, they killed Spirit Airlines. No, seriously, I'm not joking. Like, these are the same people who swear that they're protecting the little guy. Well, they helped bury one of the last major ultra low cost airlines that we've had in America.
You're looking at a very empty Spirit check-in area at Charlotte Douglas International Airport after Spirit Airlines ceased operations overnight after bailout talks with the White House broke down.
Chanley Painter has the details now. Chanley.
Hey, good morning. So earlier, the company announced it's going out of business, ending its operations immediately, telling passengers not to even go to the airport. That's why it's so empty there. They said this quote, "To our guest, all flights have been canceled and customer service is no longer available. Despite the company's efforts, the recent material increase in oil prices and other pressures on the business have significantly impacted Spirit's financial outlook. With no additional funding available to the company, Spirit had no choice but to begin this wind down." And this morning's announcement could impact hundreds of thousands of travelers and reportedly some 17,000 employees.
And now, unfortunately, consumers lose, right? Consumers lose, workers lose, and travel options are now fewer. But somehow, we're supposed to believe that what the Democrats were advocating for just a few years ago was the compassionate option. I keep telling y'all, these darn Democrats don't know what the heck they're doing because they don't understand the way the world works. These people will regulate everything that they touch. And they regulate it into a graveyard and then stand over the coffin pretending that they're the heroes, right? We're going to watch Elizabeth Warren and the Biden administration. They actually blocked a private merger between JetBlue and Spirit Airlines. And their reasoning was because they were protecting competition. A socialist talking about protecting competition. So Spirit is dead. And that reasoning, protecting competition, it's like claiming that you saved the patient after you unplug the ventilator. Like, that's how crazy this story is. And it is far more than just about what the airline experienced. What we're going to talk about today, this is what happens when the government believes that they are sovereign and the bureaucrats believe that they know your life better than you do. You got politicians they have never run a business and they start micromanaging markets that they don't even understand. And do you want to know what the scariest part is? The scariest part about all of this is that millions of Americans, they still think that the answer to everything is more government control, more regulation, more dependency, more bureaucrats, more masters looking for slaves. So today we're going to talk about how Democrats, they're the ones who helped kill Spirit Airlines. And we're going to talk about why this merger mattered and why the free market, y'all, the free market should have just been allowed to do what it does. This whole disaster. Oh yes, it is a warning sign for every single American who still believes that government can manage your life better than you can. Let's get into this. All right, grace and peace, you guys. Welcome back to Unshakable. We are no longer on the beach, but I do have a slight little tan. Now, before we begin, you guys, can you just go ahead and get something out the way for me? I need you to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to this channel if you're not already, and I want you to share this episode. Why? Folks need to understand what happens when government grows beyond its proper role. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Y'all, this story right here, this is not just about an airline. This whole story is a lesson in liberty and control and about what happens when the government stops being a servant and starts behaving like a master or a king. Isn't this the party that talk about we don't have no kings and they're always calling Donald Trump a king, yet they always got the medal in your life to function as the king over all matters. So let's just go ahead and break this down clearly. Okay, JetBlue attempted to swoop in and acquire Spirit Airlines in a merger. Y'all, this merger was worth billions of dollars. And JetBlue presented a very solid argument. Their argument was so simple. They were like, look, All right, now, Spirit, y'all out here, y'all struggling, okay? They're struggling financially, and the airline industry, it is just brutal, okay? You have rising costs, competition is incredibly fierce, and them merging together with Spirit, they would have combined or created a company that was stronger financially, and they would have been allowed to be more competitive. Now, from a free market perspective, there's nothing new or novel or extraordinary about this. Like, that's normal. That's what happens in the course of doing business. Businesses merge all the time. Companies restructure all of the time. Sometimes a company survives, sometimes they fail. However, it's called a market economy. That's the way it's supposed to work. But the overlords, okay, the plantation overseers and the masters over there, the Democrat Party, they are the ones that stepped in. Yes, the Biden administration stepped in through the Department of Justice, and they were like, no, we are not going to allow you to do this. We have no interest in letting the free market do what it does. But do you want to know why? They claimed that the merger, well, if we allow these two conglomerates to merge, it's going to reduce competition and raise the prices for the low-cost travelers.
That passengers have choices, that they have access to low fares, that they have access to competition.
And socialist Elizabeth Warren said at the time, preventing a merger between JetBlue and Spirit, which would have kept us from being here today, said, I've warned for months a JetBlue Spirit merger would have led to fewer flights, higher fares. The irony is that that really kind of socialist viewpoint got us one less airline and fewer jobs.
Well, they should have let them merge. That's clear with hindsight. Secretary Duffy argued against having the federal government bail them out. Commerce Secretary Lutnick wanted to bail them out. I'm glad the president listened to Duffy. We got no the federal government's got no business trying to run an airline. We can't even deliver the mail when the stuff has an address right there on the front. That's free enterprise. You know, I have a lot of friends in small businesses that have borrowed money and tried new ideas, and the government and they didn't work, and the government didn't bail them out. So I'm not a big fan of these bailouts, but I think in hindsight, clearly, President Biden should have allowed them to merge. That probably would have solved most of the problems.
See how they wrapped it up? They claimed this is about you. All of the bonnet brigades and the ones that wear the slippers, who you ain't really got no money to travel, but you want to feel like you're going somewhere. They was looking out for you. Lies, I say. Lies. Let me explain to you how this went down. Okay. They claimed that they were protecting people again. But let me explain something to you. Okay. This is the same mentality that Democrats, they apply this to everything. They apply this to healthcare, to education, to energy, to banking and parenting and childcare. These people think that they share custody of your children. That's how embedded this worldview is. They think this way about housing and business, every facet of life. The underlying assumption with a Democrat is always the same. You were too ignorant to manage your own life. So we, the big government, we got to come in and manage it for you. That is their whole philosophy in a nutshell. These people believe that the government is God, the government is master, they are your provider, and they are sovereign. And this is precisely why I'm always telling y'all, we don't share custody of our children with the government, and you need to get the government out of your life. You don't want to be a government dependent. The more they interfere, the worse your outcomes become. You don't have to believe me. Just look at the Black community. That is the observable reality that you need to pay attention to if you want to see what government dependence by way of Democrat policy looks like. I'm just saying. Y'all may not, you don't have to like it, but it's true. But here's what's hilarious about this entire situation. Okay. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas is what they call her, right? Her and the whole anti-merger crowd, they claimed that they were protecting the low-cost travelers. You know, they love the bonnet brigades and the twerkers and the ones who like to fight and stuff. Yeah, they like y'all. But anyway, Spirit, Spirit collapsing entirely, you do realize that this has now given consumers fewer choices, not more. Fewer, not more. But let's be honest here. Spirit and JetBlue, had they merged, that would not have eliminated budget travel. Why? We still had Frontier Airlines. You still got Southwest, even though Southwest is not considered budget. It's kind of like in the middle. We still had a lower cost legacy carrier. Like I said, you had Southwest. So consumers still had options. This wasn't some giant monopoly swallowing up the entire market. That's not what it was. This was, look, Spirit has been struggling for a while. And a struggling airline, they were attempting to survive by trying to make a strategic business move. And JetBlue was like, listen, we could be Spirit Blue. We could be Jet Spirit, like whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. Let us help you. But because the government bureaucrats, they think they are smarter than actual people who are in business, then they think they're smarter than the marketplace. These nut jobs blocked it. And now look at you. Just look at the outcomes now. Spirit is gone. Wonderful job, Elizabeth Warren. Wonderful job, sock puppet, Joe Biden. I'm telling y'all, this is why free people must think different. This whole situation, I need y'all to lean in. I really need you guys, my audience, to pay attention because this issue, it is so much deeper than aviation. I know y'all like, well, good riddance to Spirit. They was ghetto. Anyway, nope, this is deeper. Y'all know me. This is a worldview issue. There are some people who genuinely believe as a deeply held presupposition that the government should function like a national parent. I know it's hard to believe because you and I, we function in our freedom. We don't think like this. But there are some people that they want leaders to manage the outcomes. What do you think DEI is? So we still have racism, as if the government has the ability to eradicate hatred in the heart on the basis of ethnicity. Right? So you've got politicians who believe that it is their job to manage outcomes, manage risk, manage choices, manage industries, manage your behavior, and let us not forget they got to manage your speech. They absolutely want to manage your education, manage your healthcare, manage your economics, manage life itself. However, you do need to understand that was never the purpose of government. I know if you're a millennial on down, you really think that that's the government's job. Listen to a millennial or a Gen Z or talk about healthcare. Healthcare is a right. Yeah, you have a right to buy whatever kind of healthcare you want. You do not have the right to demand that my money be used to subsidize your purchase. It's not how it works. The government's role was always intended to be limited, right? Protect the rights of the American people by way of the Constitution, maintain order, okay? Enforce contracts, defend the nation, because you ain't got a nation if you can't defend yourself, right? Keep the roads and the bridges and the trains running on time. Leave me the heck alone, right? Just leave Jesus in my heart, my 9mm on my hip. Outside of that, that's it. I don't want nothing from you. But modern progressivism, it treats government like a divine institution. They believe government is sovereign. That's the Marxist way. You got to dethrone God and government swoops in and takes its place. So once people start believing that they are supposed to depend on government for everything, they stop developing the ability to govern themselves. Look at the Black community. What y'all gonna do for us? Well, if we stop voting Democrat, what Republicans gonna do for us? Look at, you see? Do you see the mindset? This is how you create intellectually stunted citizens. This is how you create emotionally dependent citizens. This is how you create politically manipulated citizens. They will vote blue no matter who. People who think that every problem requires another bureaucrat to step in, another regulation, another program, another handout, another expert, right? when the government is the one who created the problems that's exploding right there in their faces. Instead of them questioning government itself and all of its overreach, instead, do you know what they do? They like, well, I think we need more. They demand more government. That is insanity. And yes, I know we've had a lot of uncomfortable conversations on this channel, but we about to have another one, particularly when it comes to the Black community and Black Democrat politics. Listen, one of the greatest tragedies of modern political culture is how dependency has been normalized and romanticized within the Black America. Okay, you got many people, they've been conditioned to believe that, oh, freedom, oh no, we can't do too much of that freedom. You know, freedom is dangerous. But government dependency, you know, is safe there. You can always count on the Social Security check and the EBT and the WIC to come through. Y'all, that is backwards. It is so backwards. Liberty requires responsibility. To truly be free, you got to be mature. You have to exercise wisdom. You have to take a risk. But dependency, for some, it seems like the easier path. Why? Because it infantilizes people, right? It trains citizens to think like subjects. It's funny because I had this, I am subscribed to this from Hillsdale College. And the March-April issue says, are we subjects or citizens? I said that was right on time. Because once people become psychologically dependent on government and they'll start defending the very systems that are harming them. Y'all, this is why some folks, they can watch government failures time after time happen over and over again. And they will still conclude, well, maybe we just need a little more government. Look at California. Perfect example. Look at New York. Perfect example. I'm telling you, no. Most times, government is the problem. And Spirit Airlines is a perfect example. Listen, Senator Kennedy made a very valid point. And I have to agree with him. Listen, government should not be bailing businesses out every time they get in trouble. That is true. But the bigger point is if government had stayed out of the merger process in the first place, right? Spirit would not even be in the position where they needed a bailout. That conversation happening after the fact was unnecessary. Why? Because the market had already presented a viable and possible solution. JetBlue was the answer. Infuse some private capital in there. Let's privately restructure this company to resurrect it. Private enterprise. There was a voluntary agreement between two businesses coming to the table trying to figure out how they can make it work. But no, government blocked it. This is why I hope you can see why overregulation, how it becomes dangerous. Because what government does, it creates instability, right? And then later, it pretends to rescue people from the instability that it created. It cannot do what you think it can do. And from a biblical perspective, I have to drive this home. This matters so deeply because me as a Christian, when I examine scripture, y'all, scripture never presents the state as all powerful. Only God alone is sovereign. God is sovereign. Only God is Lord. But when government expands beyond its rightful boundary, do you know what happens? It begins competing with the God-ordained spheres of influence like the family, like the church, like private industry and businesses and your individual responsibility. That is incredibly dangerous. It is dangerous spiritually, politically, and culturally dangerous. Y'all, the more power that centralized government gains, I hope you understand the less freedom that you, the individual, possess. And y'all, time and time again, what have we seen? History has shown us repeatedly that government is trash. It is terrible at being a god. It's just not that good at it. Now, I mean, it can get you to worship it for a little bit, but it really doesn't do much for you. So y'all, as I wrap it up and I close, here's where we are. Here's bad news, okay? I'm gonna just shoot it to you straight. Spirit is dead. Okay? Spirit Airlines is dead. It's done. It's over. And Auntie is sorry. And while there were financial problems inside of the company, we cannot ignore the role that government played in making sure that it failed. We cannot ignore that. The government interference was part of the problem. They played a significant role in removing one of its biggest opportunities for survival. They blocked the merger with JetBlue, which is what free market enterprise looks like when two businesses come together with mutual interest and figure it out. But that's not what happened because government stuck its nose in. Thank you, Joe Biden's DOJ and Elizabeth Warren. We appreciate you. Y'all, this should serve as a warning. Every time that government promises to protect you, every time they promise to offer you something, you need to pay attention to what freedoms that you're surrendering in exchange for their help. Because freedom is not, you can't maintain freedom by being dependent on another entity. Freedom is maintained through responsibility, right? Through you understanding what liberty is, by being accountable, and through self-governance. That is how freedom is maintained. I don't even understand how you are an American if you don't even understand that basic tenet. I'm sorry, Americans, if you don't relearn that principle alone, one, we're about to celebrate our 250th year anniversary, and yet we're going to continue to create a nation full of dependents and citizens who keep begging government masters to solve problems that government was never designed to solve. And if Americans do not relearn the principles of liberty, do you know what's going to happen? We're going to continue creating a nation that is full of citizens who just keep begging government masters to solve problems that the government helped create in the first place. And it's just going to have us out here looking crazy. So I'm curious to know, what do you think? One, are you happy Spirit died, or are you sad that Spirit died? Because you like, look, I like to fly, but Delta's for the bougie people. And I need a Spirit in my life to get me from point A to point B. Or if you're like, this is devastating. This is devastating, and this is what happens when the government gets involved. But I am curious to know, do you believe that the government helped kill Spirit Airlines? Like, should the merger have been allowed to happen, which is what capitalism does? When you just get out the way, right? Just let it function in its freedom. Like, how much control should the government really have over private business decisions? I think they should have very little. But I'm curious to know, what do you think? I want you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this episode. And until next time, you guys, stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. Grace and